Welkom terug. Met hoeveel het die departement van basiese onderwys sy begroting besnoei en wat beteken dit vir openbare skole? Ian Ollis, die DA se woordvoerder oor basiese onderwys, sit hier ook met my. Ian, welcome to the show.
Hi.
So it was shocking to see recently that spending has been going down per pupil in the public school system for 10 years and that the infrastructure budget has been cut. How serious is this problem?
It's very serious. The budget that has been cut per child over the last, it's about 7 or 8 years, has gone down by at least 8% when you look at the per child spend. And now in the medium-term budget over the next 3 years, government is cutting about 7 billion, 7 miljard rand, wat nou uitgesny word. So we've got a problem where the spend per child is going to go down even more now, and the spending is being cut this time from all of the infrastructure programs that are being run by the government.
So this means that mud schools in the Eastern Cape aren't being replaced and new schools are not being built in Gauteng, which is the province which attracts most education, I don't want to say education refugees, but people who come here for the good schools. Where does that leave the public school system?
Absolutely, it's a major, major problem. Gauteng hasn't been building enough schools, and Gauteng is one of the two provinces that attracts the most new pupils. In the last year, we had 33,000 pupils who arrived on day one in January. No classroom space, they weren't even registered. In the Western Cape, we had, I think, about 25,000. We don't have enough classrooms. But it's not just full schools. Remember, we've got probably about 12,000 pit toilets in the country that need to be replaced, upgraded, proper infrastructure put in terms of toilets, internet connections, IT. We need so many things in schools, science labs, libraries, all that kind of thing. It's not just building of new schools, it's all of the other infrastructure things on existing schools that have to be added.
Okay, but Ian, we spend 6.8% per annum of our budget of our GDP, in fact, on education. That doesn't sound like a little bit of money. That's a lot of money.
It's not a little bit of money, but it is dropping. It's not increasing, and we're cutting a large amount over the next 3 years. The medium-term budget is over 3 years. So it's going to reduce in terms of the percentage of the overall budget. Depending on what happens in the rest of the budget. They are cutting from housing as well and sending it to higher education.
Okay, but you can argue that the budget should be cut because the provinces aren't spending their budgets anyway. Limpopo spent 1% of its infrastructure budget last year, according to the front page story in Rapport on Sunday, 3% in the Eastern Cape, 36% in the Western Cape, and only 32% in Gauteng. Whose interests are served by not spending money that's already allotted for infrastructure?
What the problem is with the total budget is partly provinces that don't spend, but there's a bigger problem in the sense that we haven't just got the spending on infrastructure that is a problem. We're also having another problem in the system where the unions are pushing for higher salaries for teachers, and at the same time, the annual increase in the total education budget is getting smaller.
Fair enough, but let's focus on the reason why provinces would not spend their infrastructure budgets. These numbers that I just cited, what on earth would be the motive for that? Take a guess.
Well, they tell us that they built all of the urban schools, easy to access places first, and now they're having to build schools that are far away in rural areas where there are no roads, and the contractors partly don't want to go to those areas, and partly some of the contractors have run off with the money and they've had to shut down the contract, stop everything and try and claim the money back because that money is now gone, the contractors run away and the school isn't built. So it's project management skills that are missing in the Department of Education. It's the Public Works Department that's also involved. Their project management skills are not up to scratch. And then we've got a number of developers that just run away, take the money and disappear.
Okay, so it means that a government that will complain again in 10, 15 years about inequality in this country is preparing rural kids who are sitting in these mud schools in 10, 15 years when they enter the job market for failure.
Yes, and there's a bigger problem with those rural schools. We have many, many, many schools in South Africa, particularly in the Eastern Cape and in KZN, where the school is 30 pupils or less. And with a school that size, you can imagine how small the classrooms are, how many kids in a classroom. And yet, in some of the bigger provinces, like Gauteng, the Western Cape and KZN, urban areas, you're seeing classes with 60 pupils in. And we know that when you get above about 35 kids in a class, the quality of teaching goes down. So there are a whole range of these problems.
Angie Motshekga, the minister, has complained, as you have, that the money has gone to higher education, but she says now private sector should step in. Do you agree with that the private sector has a co-responsibility to help solve this problem?
I don't think the private sector has a responsibility to do the government's job, but the private sector is. In the Western Cape, we have collaboration schools, where in the last year, the private sector has committed 150 million to funding poor schools and schools that are just failing, to help through this collaboration model to fix the problem. So the private sector is actually already involved to a degree, apart from donations to build schools, the Mandela Foundation, and a whole bunch of other activities that are already involved. Vodacom, MTN, and other operators are providing internet connectivity to school as part of their commitment to South Africa. So private sector is already involved. Angie Motshekga and the ANC government need to realize that they are given money from taxes and all sorts of other things that they must make cost effective. They must be building schools. They must be providing the infrastructure from taxpayers' money, which they already have. Well, what we've seen is that money's been wasted to such an extent, and we're shifting it to other departments, which means that the Department of Education is struggling. We can't just say it's the private sector's fault when we haven't done our own job as government in South Africa.
Ian Ollis, skole minister van Onderwys en die deel, baie dankie.
Baie dankie.
Bly ingeskakel. Ek is net na hierdie advertensies terug.